Hey, everybody. We are here to answer your questions. It's as simple as that. You ask them, we got the answers. Probably have the answers.
Lots of people ask questions. You want to start with one? I got a bunch here from Facebook, too.
I was going to start with a comment right away, just break the rules.
Go for it.
Let's just set that straight. Anything goes. Dan Ross said, love your new podcast. That was the first one I came across. So thank you, Dan. We do have a new podcast. You can go to northrop.photo/podcast and see our...
sdp.io/podcast.
Okay.
We do need to set up a page at northrop.photo. It should be coming online on different podcasting sites like iTunes soon.
Okay.
If it's not there yet. So it should be there soon.
All right. First question. How do you break off from GAS, gear acquisition syndrome? I'm guessing they mean.
Oh, yeah. I would say you just force yourself to shoot with what you have. What else could you do?
Well, I think sometimes gear can inspire you. You get a new lens and it's different.
Mm-hmm.
And then that inspires your photography. You may need to just get inspired in a new way. So work with what you have and then set a project for yourself that works within the capabilities of your camera. So if you don't have a good gear for wildlife, don't say, oh, I'm going to go take pictures of osprey today. Don't do that. If you have a nice versatile lens, like a 24-105 or something, say, I'm going to do black and white portraits. So focus on the creative aspect and don't worry about your gear so much. You're going to go broke.
Here's my rule, and we break it all the time because we do reviews, but wait until your current gear fails you in some way.
Yeah.
Until you wish you could get closer or you wish you could go wider and you weren't able to work around it. Once that happens once or twice for an important shot, then it's time to sell it and invest in something different.
That's pretty good advice. I
have a question here.
Okay.
From Gary Rogers Brennan. Really unusual question. For shooting roller coasters, Canon or Nikon? He picked a D7200 and a Sigma 7200 f2.8, and he wants to know if he chose
It's all
right.
wrong. That's all wrong. For roller coaster photography?
Wouldn't even bother selling it. Just right in the trash.
Just throw it away.
No, that's fine. That's again kind of along with the rule we were just saying. It just doesn't matter that much. I mean, the reason we wrote a book on photographic techniques is because it's those techniques that make the difference. Choosing the lighting, the timing, all of that is far more important than the difference between Canon and Nikon. It's like Honda or Toyota. Like they'll get you to the grocery store, and there pretty much doesn't make that much of a difference.
So Still Thinking 2K says, hello, love your videos. I shot with a Nikon D5500 and it has internal picture settings like standard, neutral, vivid, etc. Should I use any of those settings or does it not matter since I'm shooting in RAW? You don't have to use those settings when you shoot RAW. It doesn't process your photos, so you actually need to go in and edit your RAW photos because there's no contrast or anything. So you'll want to go in and do that. I feel like the way that looks, I guess that's fine. But
yeah,
you don't need to do that.
No, you can do it in post. That's
you can do it in post.
So I have a question here. Corey Carpenter says, temperature or humidity, which one has the biggest impact on gear and picture quality and how? And
that's tough because it depends. Really cold and your gear won't work. Really humid and your gear will break. Probably temperature. Maybe.
I was going to go with humidity.
Really? Oh, because it fogs up?
Well, I guess because I'm thinking about like long distance shots, like wide landscapes or telephoto wildlife shots. The humidity in the air drops the sharpness so much to the point where it can become unusable. Like a thick haze. We can just see it with our eye, that thick haze when you look at something far away.
Yeah, but if it's cold,
humidity.
Your gear just stops working after a while.
That's true, but we've been out sub-0 degrees and for the most part, decent quality gear. Your batteries will burn out quickly.
My finger doesn't even work at a certain point.
The only time we really have problems with temperature is when it's hot, you get the heat rising off of the ground.
Yeah.
And that can really screw things up. But I'm going to say humidity. It's there all the time. It's ruining your pictures of stars. It's a real pain.
I'm going to say temperature.
You're going to be wrong.
You already are.
What else you got?
How did you and Tony meet? Yahoo Personals to kill the romance for you. The only person I ever met or talked to from Yahoo Personals.
Yeah.
And then we met up at a restaurant. And it was love at first sight.
Joseph Rotford asks, when shooting birds in the wild, do you walk around or sit and wait?
Depends on the bird.
Yeah.
Mostly sit and wait, though.
Sitting and waiting is the better, more effective approach. But we definitely have times when we just walk around. If we take the dogs for a walk, I'll often bring a camera because just in case. Sometimes literally a bald eagle will just fly over my head.
Yeah.
And I want to have a camera there. If we're taking a hike, I'll bring a camera with me. But if you want to get good shots of birds, you find a place where they are and you sit and you wait, because that's the only way to get close. And getting close is the most important thing.
This is a related question. What is your favorite bird to photograph, and which bird would you like to photograph one day? I know what yours is. You want to get that kingfisher.
Yeah.
You know what bird I like? Oh, I can't believe that it's like a huge gray stork, and I can't remember. It just
like a condor
left me. No. It's so unusual. It has this huge head. It's like this big and this giant bill. And now I can't believe
a shoebill.
Yeah.
Like the one we saw in the zoo in Japan.
Yeah, the shoebill.
Shoebill is a really cool bird.
Those are so cool. They look like a guy in a suit. It's really weird.
But my favorite bird to shoot is definitely an osprey, because they're numerous and they're just very cool. They hit the water and they pull fish out, and they're just beautiful birds.
They are beautiful. Here's one. Do you think that in the future cameras will be more like smartphones, not just with Wi-Fi and direct internet connection, but with the possibility of installing apps so you can do in-camera things, blah, blah, blah?
The Sony cameras do that already.
Yeah, somebody pointed that out. They do have apps.
The apps are terrible. They're pretty consistently terrible.
But it's going in that direction.
Yeah, but I definitely think so. When I did my perfect camera video, that was my number one thing, is we need them to be standard apps. Standard apps are Instagram, Twitter, etc. So Sony's going in the right direction, but they haven't made that leap yet.
Let's see. What is the best way to get yourself and your photography/art out there? This is something as a young artist that I am struggling with. Oh, that's Maya Rose. Hi, Maya.
I'm sorry, read that again.
What is the best way to get yourself and your photography out there?
Oh, I think it's so easy nowadays with social networking.
Maya's young. I think she's about 14.
Okay.
So you could network with your friends. You can do local gallery events. You can make a Facebook page for yourself or a portfolio for yourself. And you can start doing photo shoots for friends and family for free before you're comfortable enough to charge. Those are all good ways.
Yeah, it depends on the style of photography. I mean,
and sometimes
Instagram, if her parents are comfortable with her being on there, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
And there's real photography on Instagram. You can just use the proper hashtags and view pictures from other people's Instagrams.
If she's trying to get out into the community, there are often coffee shops that will let you hang your art. You just put stuff there.
Yeah, reach out to local restaurants if you want to actually show off your work a little bit.
Here's a good one. Robin says, is it best to stick to one photographic style? I like to experiment with different styles, such as dark and moody, grungy photos, to bright and beautiful landscapes. This makes me feel, however, that my photography is all over the place and not focused. I want my photos to flow with one another, but I find it hard to commit to just one style.
Yeah, I always felt the same way. I never felt like my photos had a distinctive style. Like if you look at David LaChapelle's photos, you know his photo, even if you don't know he took it. You just recognize his style. It's that distinctive.
Some people will tell you to stick with one thing and get really good at it. But for me, if you enjoy trying different things, I don't see any point in that. But what you can do is do collections. So if you're doing a grungy collection, don't just take one photo and then abandon that, explore it further. So if you're doing like scary photos, take a set of 10 and then you have a series. If you're doing wildlife, make sure you get out there and you get a set of good pictures and some diversity. So you don't want to hop around so much that you're not learning or that you're abandoning your photos before, you can get a handle on what you're doing. But I think it's okay to explore, and that may even lead you to a type of photography you haven't found yet that is your favorite. So,
and a style will emerge organically. You don't have to
so.
try to develop a style. It will just come out as you develop a tendency to use a particular lens, or you shoot in particular light, or pull a certain expression out of your subjects. Colleen Hauberg asks, would you use exposure compensation when photographing the Northern Lights with a Nikon D7200? And my answer is no. I wouldn't. For night photography, I'm pretty much always in manual mode, especially in those sorts of situations. So you're going to be at a really long shutter speed, 30 seconds, and then probably stacking multiple pictures to try to get the noise down. I would use a very, very fast lens, like an f1.4 lens, and you should be quite wide angle, especially on an APS-C body. But yeah, ISO, whatever the ISO you need to get a proper exposure is, you might be at ISO 3200. They're very, very dim.
Here's a question from Jones Journal. Cameras are fun and all, but you should also discuss geography and travel adventures. Tony reminds me a little of a National Geographic host. We actually have a travel show. We have to get that out to you. But we have traveled a lot. We've been to what, like 26, 27 countries, something like that.
Yeah, still a tiny fraction
And
of the
we've
planet,
taken,
but we're doing the best we can.
Yeah, we've taken videos along the way, and we have advice on places to take pictures and things like that. So stay tuned. We'll have that out one day.
Yeah, it turns out it's really, really difficult to edit a travel show. Filming it is hard, but editing it is really time consuming. Vincenzo Tavasi asks, he's seen the overview that we have the A7 II, but he's still trying to quickly switch between AFS and AFC on an A7 Mark II, Alpha 7 Mark II. And what I do is I will assign that to the quick button, the little Q button. And we do that a lot on the A7R2 because it has good continuous autofocus. But the A7 II doesn't have great continuous autofocus. So I literally never use it on that camera. I would rather try to manually focus, or I just use AFS. So I guess I've been saying I wouldn't bother switching to AFC. It just doesn't work that well. It's kind of frustrating.
Jeff wants to know, do you live in Connecticut? I will be visiting there for 3 months and would like some suggestions for day trips to shoot some cool pics. Thanks in advance.
Oh, Connecticut's kind of a big state, and we're in like the southeast corner of it.
Yeah, I can't say that we've explored our own state a lot, sadly enough. But there are some beautiful locations. There's Harkness State Park if you want good places for portraits.
Yeah, if you watch
We're
our
there
videos,
all of the time.
you'll feel totally comfortable there.
The Connecticut River is beautiful. There's what's the opera house there? Justin, do you remember? We're good at this.
I think that's it.
Yeah.
Well, there's the Devil's Hop Yard.
Yeah.
There's
a lot of shoreline pictures in the little towns like Essex and things like that where they're historic boats and it's really beautiful. And also the Mystic Seaport, and all of Mystic is really beautiful.
You're not supposed to say it, but I don't find Connecticut to be the most photographic place. It doesn't have huge mountains. It doesn't have big landmarks. It's quaint.
Yeah.
There's nothing like grand.
No, I think it's pretty, but I am.
Yeah.
It's the Goodspeed Opera House.
Oh, the Goodspeed. That's what it is. Can you please tell us a bit about your own transition from enthusiast to pros and your biggest lesson learned in the process? Well, I went pro like almost too soon and very abruptly in my career because I just jumped into stock photography.
Which is about the hardest type of pro work.
You have people rejecting your work constantly.
But so specific.
It's extremely helpful. And I learned from my own transition and from watching so many people that we teach, because we have this book called Stunning Digital Photography. There's a group, and I've seen so many people go from amateurs or enthusiasts to pro. And one thing that I see over and over again is that you have to take feedback and you have to be open to critique and you have to just keep trying. And if you look at your picture and you say, I'm not good enough, this isn't good enough, and this isn't my talent, and I give up, you're never going to advance. But if you can just keep an open mind and tell yourself, well, I'm never going to be finished learning, and I'm never going to be good enough by my own standards. I just have to keep going. That was an important lesson for me.
I think the hardest thing is to go from shooting for yourself to shooting for somebody else. Because you're not shooting to make yourself happy anymore. You're shooting to make somebody else happy. And that means you might be taking pictures you don't like. That means you might be putting a toddler on a fake backdrop, or, doing something where it makes you go, ugh, but makes the client happy. There's a lot of that.
I don't think I've ever shot something I didn't enjoy on some level.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
No, when I was doing wildlife for stock, going and shooting birds in zoos wasn't the ideal thing for a wildlife photographer.
Yeah.
I'd rather be neck deep in the woods. But those were the pictures that sold because you could get the cleanest images and you could get the widest diversity.
You just needed to do volume at that point.
Yeah, it was just, that's how you get the biodiversity. As you go, they have collected all the animals in one place, but it's not the dream shot that you as an enthusiast would do.
Yeah, for me, I'm pretty happy if there's just a challenge and I have to figure out how to get from point A to point B, and that can be satisfying for me.
Lefteris Giannakopoulos. Portraits with cheaper telephoto lenses. Sorry about the name. Not everyone can afford a 7200 f2.8. So the entry level portrait lens we recommend is a 50mm f1.8. And depending on the system you're at, that could cost $100 or so less if you get it used. One step up from that is the 85mm f1.8. But go to northrop.photo because people don't know this, but there's a whole section there on the portrait gear, and I walk you through this. I provide specific links for different camera systems, Sony, Canon.
There's a
Nikon.
lot of gear questions here. If we didn't answer your gear question, you should go to our site and take a look, because we have written so much about gear with our recommendations. I thought this one was funny. Tico asked, what was it like buying a Tesla, and how did people on the street react towards you? There's no reaction.
Yeah, nobody reacts on the street. That's a nice thing about it. It's not a BMW i8 where everybody reacts.
Yeah. I think it's funny because the only reactions we've gotten, like negative ones where people think we think we're cool, but it's funny because I don't know. I feel like people imagine it's going to be some way when you get something. It's like the same. I don't know how to explain it. It doesn't really matter. Yeah,
people will react if they know what it is. They'll be like, "Oh, I know about Tesla. That's really cool."
Yeah.
But other people who aren't into cars don't think anything. It just looks like a sedan.
Oh yeah, some people get mad at me because there's tax breaks for electric cars, and they think that that's really bad. My random picks asked, "Do you guys hear this often? You're invited, and don't forget your camera."
Oh yeah. Do you want to come to this party? Maybe you could bring your camera.
When does that happen though?
Oh, I've had it happen a bunch of times.
Not really recently.
No, because mostly we just go to your family things.
Yeah.
They will sometimes pitch in maybe you could bring your camera at the end.
I've
had it happen with weddings.
My immediate family has never done that to me. And it's really funny because the people that I know the best, my parents, my sister, the people closest to me would never ask me to work for free.
That's probably because they've heard you complain about how
well,
people
no,
do that.
I haven't. The thing is, they love me and they know that I get so little free time and they just want to be with me.
Yeah.
And so those aren't the people to ask. It's always someone coming out of the woodwork like, hey, remember we had a class together in high school? Do you do this for free? And I just say no. I feel...
It does happen, though, and I do find it insulting. Lee Bounds asks, how often do you use auto ISO, and in what situations specifically? I use auto ISO by default almost all the time. I manually set an ISO for night photography and in the studio because our strobes don't have TTL, so you pretty much have to use manual settings. But what about you?
I was reading other questions, sorry.
Oh, when do you use auto ISO?
I use auto ISO often. Just if I'm out and about shooting, I'll put it into auto ISO if my shutter speed is more important or something like that.
I'll manually set the shutter speed in ISO and aperture, but then let the camera set the ISO.
Yeah.
And then dial the exposure compensation up or down. It's just I find it faster.
Tony, what was your favorite place or thing to photograph while you were living in Boston?
Oh, I mean, down by the harbor. What is the park that we always go to with the carousel and such? It's across the harbor. I guess the answer is the Skyline.
Yeah, can you guys tell we're really good at names? We can't remember our own opera house or the huge park right across from the Skyline. It's called, I can't remember.
Anyway, it's across the harbor pointing back because you have to go leave the city to get pictures of the city. And I've never gotten a good picture of it because they built that bridge as I was leaving, but that new big bridge that I also don't remember the name of.
Wow.
It's spectacular.
The Zion?
You're right. Something with a Z, the Zakum.
The
Zakum Bridge.
Zakum. Okay. Here's one. Any plans to put a trip to Australia under work expenses? Work expenses? From Quirk and Melody. Yes, we would like to go to Australia and New Zealand, buy a chili bin, see Matt Granger.
Yeah, it's one of a dozen different trips that
dump all of the Vegemite into the ocean.
We've been
save
planning.
the whole Australian population.
Yeah. Christian Jensen says to stop it, come back to the show soon. He wants to learn from people's mistakes. Stop it is a segment where people send in their bad pictures and we just make fun of them.
It's so funny.
But the thing is, But
most of them were my pictures because I was the only person that didn't really mind having my pictures ripped apart.
Yeah, so if you're willing to let us make fun of your very bad pictures, go to sdp.io/stopit and submit the pictures, and we'll go through them and we'll do it again.
Remember Stop It Sexy Edition with all the people trying to be...
bad sexy pictures would be fantastic.
So
but for the most part, we just don't get enough submissions. But
people love it. They just don't want to be made fun of.
Yeah, exactly.
And I can't make fun of people without their permission.
No. John Pender, your top 3 IPAs. I don't know if you have a preference for this.
No, I don't really do that.
Well, I don't know that I can name 3. I will say Dogfish Head 60 Minute, still my favorite IPA, even though I've been through about a dozen.
Yeah.
And then I'll toss it over to Justin because I know Justin's going to have an answer.
Sorry, my camera's not on. But yeah, that Dogfish Head is great, and they also have the 90-minute IPA version of that.
Yeah, I'm not that big of a fan.
It's
of that
super
90
stiff
minute.
though. Yeah, and like myself or like you, I can't think of another two, even though I've had plenty.
Yeah, the problem with the 90-minute is you have to like really pace yourself. I feel
that's pretty
because you just
strong.
If you drink at a comfortable pace to quench your thirst, you will be just laid out. At least I will be. Maybe I'm a lightweight. Daniel Leapst asks, do you use the famous flat image profile for stills and/or video? So this flat image profile makes the picture very low contrast. So it captures more of the highlights and more of the shadows, but everything looks really just kind of flat and gray. And the answer is only when we absolutely need to. We shoot raw for photos, so we don't have to worry about it for that. But for video, we don't have cameras that shoot raw, so we do have to do that. And we will only do it if there is that much contrast. Otherwise, it actually degrades picture quality a little bit. So with our Sonys, we would just prefer to use the default settings most of the time. People differ on that. Some people like to use it all the time. Not us.
You got more questions? Because I'm done.
You're done. Okay.
What's up?
Which camera would you recommend for safari wildlife in Africa under $1,000? And again, at northrop.photo, I have recommendations for these kinds of things.
Yeah.
But you're going to, under $1,000, that's really tough. You're going to want to put almost all the money into a lens. So
Like
I would start.
Pringles can?
Yeah.
Like.
you pretty much have to get like one of the 70 to 300s or 75 to 300s. And we haven't done a specific comparison of those different models. So a low-end body on one of those, it's tough to get in under $1,000.
I'm reading yours now. Pablo says, Tony and Chelsea, what do you like to do in your free time? Eat.
Well, travel would be a huge one, but
That's
that
work
takes a lot.
now.
You play a ton of soccer.
Oh, yeah. I play soccer twice a week.
I've been playing. What was that sound?
Eat. I'm joking that I love to eat because you made fun of me
eating.
because I planned a whole day where I'm getting a milkshake in New York City.
Yeah.
It's like this big. It has like a whole piece of cake on it.
That milkshake looks quality. I also really enjoy photography in my spare time and filmmaking too.
Mm-hmm.
It's just something I like to research and look into. I'm playing Fallout 4.
I like playing Pocket
Nerds.
Morty.
Pocket Mortys, that's
read.
a quality one.
I listen to podcasts. I like to read a lot.
Yeah, I do. I spend a lot of time keeping up with news.
I like the great outdoors.
Science
when it's
news.
Not cold. I go to the beach even in the winter. Chill with my dogs. I'm not an exciting person, I'm realizing.
I know
How
you
about
don't
you,
have
Justin?
a camera, Justin, but yeah. What do you do in your spare
free
time?
Sadly, well, I do like photography a lot. That's always fun. But just gaming. Lots of gaming.
What are you playing now?
Mostly
Probably
because it's
soccer.
winter, though.
Yeah.
You know, it's nice going to the beach and stuff in the summer. Fallout 4.
You're into Fallout 4 too?
Yeah, Battlefield, Hardline. I've been playing that a lot. The new Star Wars game. Good times.
Good times. Ken Humble, I understand Photoshop and Lightroom are the professional standards, but what about all these alternatives that are free or less expensive?
Yeah,
like
we hear a lot about them. GIMP
Aftershock.
and Aftershock.
Yeah, a lot of people ask about GIMP and Darkroom. And
I haven't gotten into those just because I've spent so much time learning Photoshop and Lightroom, and I need them professionally.
yeah,
I haven't learned GIMP.
I do recommend Picasa often. It's a very good free alternative to Lightroom. And GIMP is more like of the Photoshop, like for deeper editing.
Mm-hmm.
And I have dug into GIMP several times because I like to give people free alternatives. I don't want to say, here's a technique for, using software to replace your filters, but you have to buy this expensive software. So I like to do it with free software, and GIMP is way more difficult to use. Like Photoshop can save you so much time and frustration over GIMP. GIMP's fantastic for free. It's amazing what the open source community has done to develop this type of software, but it will definitely take you more time. There aren't as many resources to learn it out there. There aren't really like good books on GIMP. So if you can scrounge up the $10 a month for the Adobe Creative Cloud deal, I feel like it's worth it over the free alternatives. Not to badmouth them. It's just
I'd like to learn GIMP just for people, but
yeah,
realistically, I'm always learning about Photoshop. It's just endless learning. I can't imagine learning another editing thing, right, Justin? You see the videos; it's like pretty in depth.
Crystal Ware says she's going to a concert and they don't allow big cameras.
Yeah, there's often
this has
a
come
rule,
up to
like,
us a few times.
more than a couple of inches they consider a professional camera. I just bring a Sony.
Yeah, or we sneak in, like our favorite camera has been the Olympus EM5 Mark II. But any of the little Olympus EM cameras, they're small enough to kind of fit in your purse. And so far, nobody has complained. I like to put on the 75 millimeter f1.2? So it's Chelsea's lens. Yeah. I think is it f1.8? 75 millimeter f1.8, I think.
That's it. Yep.
And it's awesome for concerts. It's really telephoto, gathers a huge amount of light. And if you disassemble the camera, it's easy to fit into a purse and not have anybody suspect anything. Not that I'm saying you should break the rules.
It's not breaking the rules a lot of the time. All right.
Is that it for the questions?
That sounds good. So we'll do this again sometime. Don't worry about it. Thank you for watching. Bye.
Thanks.
Milkshake.